The king in the north! The king in the north!
Yo, as always, like, share, subscribe. Now let's just get into it. So, this is the spring game review, and before I even start, I wanted to give a shout out to everybody that showed up at Hellgate, everybody we saw in the stands that was showing love. You know, it was a dope thing just to see everybody and to, you know, actually meet some of the people. You see the profile pics, but actually have a face to go with the name, you know, so that's first. Shout out to TJ, John, Boxing Maniac, Kinetic, Maze. It was a dope experience, man, in Ann Arbor. Shout out to my boy Monk, Adam. You know, it was good to see them. Shout out to all of them, and it was all love. I had a great time up there. If you missed out, didn't show up, man, I don't know what to tell you, because we had a blast up there at the spring game. It was dope. It was a dope experience, you know. Met Wink. I know some of y'all saw that on my community post, the picture of all of us. It was a dope experience. And also, before I get started, I will be on, starting the first week of May, I will be on the Thursday call-in shows permanently until further notice with TJ on the Voice of College Football. So now let's just get into it. So the spring game was Saturday. I believe it was the blue team won 17-0. You know, Bryce and some of the quarterbacks struggled, you know, and it had, you know, Ohio State fans, they running with it and all this stuff, and you know how they get down. But besides them and doing what they gonna do, you know, it was and before I even get into it, our spring game is different than most teams that I know, and I don't care for it. It's starting to bother me a little bit. But the draft, where, you know, they're just drafting players, so you got starters on both teams. You might have some second team guys starting, and it's mix and match. Offensive line, receivers, you know, everything. It's mix and match. So it's hard to take a lot from our spring game. You know, you can't take much from spring games in general, but that's even higher for Michigan spring game because they do it as a draft. It's not first team against first team. You know, it's all mix and match. So that's that. You know, now let's not wait. Everybody wants to know about Bryce. Bryce, he had flashes. He had some flashes. He wasn't really trying to run the ball because it's the spring game. He can't get hit. You know, you want the guy to sit in the pocket, you know, make the throws. You know, so the thing I'll say about Bryce was you could tell he was nervous at first. Like, you could tell he was nervous. And like I said before, the city was clamoring for this dude. Like, when we were in Detroit on Thursday, everybody was talking about Bryce. Man, I want to see Bryce. That's all everybody talking about. And that's all everybody showed up to see. And you could tell he was probably nervous, you know. So you could see that at first, you know. But the thing is, I'll give you what I liked and what I didn't. You know, what I liked was you could see the arm talent. That's something that I don't care what anybody says. You could see his arm talent on display. Like, you could see it. Whether the receiver caught it or dropped it, you could see this guy can put it on the money. Like, he's got that in him. You know, and the thing that he's gonna have to work on, and also Jaden Davis, they're gonna have to work on their managing the game, the mental part of being a quarterback, having to be that field general, having to get guys lined up on time, having to get guys, having to make your checks and all this stuff before the play clock gets to zero. Those are the things that both of those guys they have to work on, and it makes sense that neither one of them has had to lead a huddle in college. You know what I mean? So both of those guys kind of struggled with that. You had some false starts. You had some delay of games. So that was part of the bad. And then the drops. You had some drops from Browder, Goodwin. And that's just what it was. You had some drops. Bryce threw an interception to one of the Metcalf brothers, the corner, and he almost threw on to TJ Metcalf, the safety. I think he'll be in the slot some this year. Those dudes looked good. The Metcalf brothers looked like they were a great addition to Michigan's team. TJ looked like he was locked in, ready to go. The way he was breaking on passes and things like that, he looked like he was locked and loaded. But that was the good and bad with Bryce. Bryce could have ran more if he wanted to, but you could tell they didn't want him to really, since they're not hitting the quarterbacks. He's trying to sit in the pocket and read the defense. And the thing that I liked about what we saw, because this was vanilla, besides the draft, other than it being a draft, which makes it hard to take something from it, also you had Chip Lindsey and Wink didn't call the games. So that's even more of why it's hard to take much from this, But the thing that we did see, besides Bryce and Jaden Davis struggled some, and he looks like he might just be an average kind of quarterback. Some of the stuff he was doing, and that elongated delivery he has, it's and I spoke on this on multiple shows. With an elongated delivery where you're winding it up back there, all those milliseconds count. So if you're going to have an elongated delivery, you really have to anticipate where you're putting the ball. You have to put it on the money. You really have to have your mental clock has to be accelerated, and you have to see the play developing and put it on the money before a Bryce Underwood would, because Bryce has a stronger arm and he's throwing it from here. He's not doing a long wind up, So that's the thing about Jaden Davis. Like he has to understand the game at a higher level than Bryce Underwood to be successful, if that makes sense. That's just what he has to do with that type of delivery. If not, him throwing like out route, we saw the out route get picked because one, he was late, and two, he has that long delivery, which is going to make you late if you're not on point with your timing. And he doesn't have that strong of an arm, so he really has to have the mental game down, At first, he looked like he might have some. He was making some throws at first. I was like, okay, Jaden. But then he kind of slowed down, and he made some big mistakes and some what is that. He had a few what is that? What is that? He caught it? Oh, okay. But he had some head scratchers. He did. Now the offensive line, it's hard to take much from it, but Evan Link was still getting cooked. The defense looks good, like from top to bottom for the most part. Shamari Earls was out there looking good. He kind of got beat on a play. Well, he did get beat. To me, if a receiver is behind you, you beat. If you got a quarterback that can throw it on the money, then you're cooked. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, he had pretty good coverage for a freshman, a true freshman that's only been on campus a few months. He looked pretty good. And you could tell they were trying to go at him because they probably want him to be in the rotation and bring him along, probably similar to how they brought along Will Johnson. But the offensive line, Evan Link is still getting cooked. They got to get a tackle. I don't know if they're trying to hope Babaloa can step up or what, but he's still getting cooked. I don't know what they're going to do about him. They probably need to pick up some a couple tackles if they can in the portal. They probably need to do that, you know. But you did see some holes get opened up for the running backs. You saw Justice Haynes had a nice couple runs. Jordan Marshall getting tough yards. You know, I know what I'm expecting out of him, so I didn't really need to see Jordan Marshall too much in this game, you know. And the defense was as expected. TJ Guy, Rashawn Benny, Derek Moore, the Metcalf guys, you know, the defense as a whole just looked pretty good, honestly. You know, but they're gonna have to do something about that offensive line, certain positions, mainly Evan Link. They got to do something about him. You know, I don't know what they're gonna do, find somebody else, but something has to be done, because the ceiling, the defense is gonna be good, but the ceiling of the team rests on the offense. How good is this offensive line going to be able to run block, and how good will they be able to pass block for Bryce? You know, whether we're running Bryce or we're throwing, you know, the offensive line has to be on point, you know, because if we want him to be a game manager, you still got to be able to run block well, you know, and if you want him to be a game manager, you really need to run block very well. If you get what I'm saying. So that's the thing with them. You had some what you call it, the drops. And when I say this, and the thing about the drops were a lot of these guys are young. You saw the young guys dropping some passes, which that could be nerves, you know. There's no excuses on the field, but come on, we have to be realistic about what we're talking about. The same way we say, man, Bryce had nerves and this and that. Same thing goes for these receivers, these really young receivers. So you can't really judge them too harshly in the spring game. I mean, you can if you want to. If you're an Ohio State fan, it's something to troll about, since you can't troll about winning the game. So it gives you something, you know. But it's a spring game. But I liked what I saw out of Browder. I like him. I think he's gonna like that. Bryce threw a perfect back shoulder fade. It was perfect. It was a thing of beauty. And Browder dropped it. But the thing that I liked about it was he was able to make the turn and get his hands on it perfectly, and he just couldn't finish the play. But he did everything right except finishing the play. It's early. He's got time to get those nerves. He's a young guy, and be able to make that catch, because he did everything right. You get what I'm saying? So we saw Bryce also like to throw to Goodwin. I'm not sure. He's probably going to be in the slot when he gets in. But Bryce seems to like him, you know. To me, Donovan McCulley is going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem for teams because he's huge. 6'5", and he's a big target. You know, so you can throw him those jump balls. You can, you know, if he gets across your face, you're about cooked. You're about cooked. You know what I'm saying? So he made some nice plays. You had Jalen Hoffman is the one that had the long touchdown. He had 7 catches for 148. So he had about 50, 60 yards without that touchdown. So he was cooking. He's a sophomore tight end. You had the best running back was Bryson Kudzil. I'm not sure how to say that last name, but he was 14 for 105. I've never heard of him. So he was running hard. You know, I believe he was number 24. He was running hard, making good cuts, good vision, finishing the run. He was running hard, and he looked pretty good, you know, from whatever he is. If he's, you know, if he makes the team, if he doesn't, if he's just a bench guy that we won't see again. He showed up for the spring game. You know, we get these dudes that show up for a spring game and then you don't see them at all that season, a la Peyton O'Leary against Omarion Walker a couple years ago, when we didn't see Peyton O'Leary the rest of the season. We didn't see him at all, you know. But He was a spring game. He was a spring game all-star, and I think that's what Bryson was, But the Metcalf twins or brothers balled out. They were a great addition. They were a great addition to the team. Like, that's just a fact, But I knew TJ would, but it looks like Tevis Metcalf is coming along a little bit too, and he should, he wasn't at he was at Arkansas, so that's not like he was just at a bottom of the barrel program or a FCS school or something. So he's got the talent, he was just young, so you grow and you get better. This is the time to get better. So who else? Cole Sullivan. Cole Sullivan looks the part, and that's great because the defense, most of the time you're in a nickel now in college football. So the fact that you've got Hausman, you've got Barham, you've got Rolder, and you've got Sullivan, that's 4. You should be pretty straight with that, And then when Boyles, I believe is his name, comes, Georgia, the Georgia transfer, he should be in the mix also. So you seem straight. D-line straight, everything else. It's just really the receivers and the offensive line. Can they take that next step? And will we get somebody in the portal? But this is the thing also, because I was listening to Garrison and I don't know the dude's name he's with on Voice of College Football, but he's quite hilarious to me. He's who's going to be a first round pick beside Mason Graham and Colston Loveland on Michigan's team? Will Johnson? Oh, I don't know if he didn't run the 40. I'm not sure if that's going to make him a first round pick. Garrison, correct him. Now you just letting him say crazy stuff and he talking crazy. Correct him. Coming at me in the chat, correct him. He talking crazy and you know it. You know what I'm saying? But the thing and also Kenneth Grant might slip and go in the first round, but that's besides the point. The Michigan isn't trying, because, people want to compare, Bryce doesn't have a team like Clemson and or Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was a freshman. He came in like after 4 or 5 games when Kelly Bryant got benched, and he led them to the championship. And Michigan's not going to ask Bryce to do all of that. We want him to be a game manager. We want our bread buttered by Jordan Marshall, by Justice Haynes, by Capana. That's where we want our bread buttered. We don't want him to be out here trying to be CJ Stroud or whoever you want to say. That's how y'all win games. That's how y'all won y'all championship. We won ours by running the rock and JJ being a game manager and playing great defense. The way games were won since the beginning of football, since time immemorial. It doesn't change. You play great defense, run the ball, have a quarterback that doesn't turn it over because he ain't throwing that much, just be smart with the ball. You can win. And that hasn't changed since football was started. You don't have to have somebody throwing for 5,000 yards to win a championship in college. What are we talking about? So that's what we want from Bryce. We want him to be a game manager and bring him along. Now, if we see that he can have more on his plate, then you give him more. But you bring him along slow. You let Jordan Marshall, Justice Haynes, Law and Order carry the load. And then you tight end them. You play action pass them here and there. 15 of 20, 14 of 20, 16 of 23. And you play that style. You play your style, we play our style. And then we'll see you in November and see whose style is better. We're trying to pick apart Michigan style like it can't win is wild when H-Town down. That was just a year ago. What are we talking about? You know? People seem to think the game evolves, but the game is still won in the trenches. That's still where it's won. And Michigan's trenches on defense look like they're going to be just fine. And the defense as a whole look like it's just going to be just fine. So Michigan just has to get that offensive line where it needs to be. Find a couple receivers, a go-to receiver. Looks like it might be McCulley, the safety blanket, hopefully. And maybe they can get somebody in the portal. If not, I think these young receivers can get the job done. You know, you just got to go through their growing pains, maybe. You know, it would probably be better to have somebody more proven, you know. But if you got to rock with what you got, some of these young dudes look like they could be studs. It's just, can they be studs this year? Can they come along fast enough? We'll have to wait and see. But for me, you just can't take too much from the spring game. But I saw enough of what I expected. Bryce can make every throw, and he's mobile enough to do a lot, you know. So it's really about, will that offensive line gel? That offensive line gels, you got problems, you know, because we're not trying to go and throw it 35 times or anything. That's not how we win. That's not how we won our championship. You know, Michigan is trying to run that rock down your throat, play action pass. Don't make mistakes at quarterback, you know. And he's a young dude, so if you get the more opportunities you give him, Bryce, to make mistakes, he will make mistakes. But the goal is to run that rock to keep him from making mistakes. We're not asking you to carry the team. We're asking the offensive line and the running backs to carry the team. So I think that's about it with the defense, with the team. Oh yeah, the kicker, I don't know his name, but the backup kicker, he's pretty bad. I don't know what to say about him, but we got Darth Zavada, you know, so it ain't too much of a worry as long as Zavada stays healthy. You know, Darth Zavada out there, he ain't missing, you know. So I think that's about it with the spring game. Yeah, I think that's about it for the most part, you know. Take it with a grain of salt. You know, Bryce is he's a kid. He's 17 still, you know, so it wasn't perfect. You could tell he was nervous, and you could tell probably those young receivers were nervous also. You know, Bryce ain't the only one that get the nervous and, you know, this big time showcase to, you know, it goes for the receivers too, because who does Bryce need most besides the offensive line? He needs his receivers, you know, so a lot of those freshman guys had jitters and probably, you know, I know Browder wanted that back shoulder fade touchdown, you know, did everything right, just didn't finish the play. So, you know, don't listen to the OSU fans. Oh, you're garbage and that and that, this and that. And they're just looking for something to troll Michigan on because they don't get to troll Michigan really anymore. Yeah, you won the championship, but we beat you. So enjoy your championship, chump. Enjoy your championship, chump. You know, that's how we feel about it. So they looking for anything, you know. They're looking for anything to hold on to be able to talk some trash to Michigan, you know, because they don't get to do it. They don't get to do it. They see your spring game. You guys, your offensive line, yeah, it was draft and mix and match, but didn't look that good. Your young quarterback made mistakes. Your young receivers, they dropped some passes, you know, so that's all. That's what they holding on to, you know. They ain't got nothing else to hold on to when it comes to rivalry trash talk, so I get it, you know. But by the time we play them, Bryce will be unplayed almost a whole season. He'll be a totally different quarterback by the time they see him, you know. But yeah, so Michigan is also trying to get an Iowa backup quarterback. He was the backup quarterback last year, and I think that's just for depth. You know, people are trolling and they're trying to get in Iowa. Well, since Davis Warren is probably pretty much done out for the year, Mikey Keene is just now getting back. You need more depth at quarterback. I don't think they're trying to get him to start. I think it's just a depth thing. Harbaugh used to have like 7 different quarterbacks for different situations for practice looks, which was very smart. He kept a lot of those guys just for looks in practice. Different guys with different skill sets to get different looks in practice, you know. I think this is more of a depth thing just because we don't have that many guys, you know. But we'll see. We'll find out, you know. We got a long way to go. The guys got a lot of time to practice and become a cohesive offensive unit. You know, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to get off of here. You know, the one thing that I liked was I like a 3-step drop. You know, everybody's got the kind of way that they like the game to be played. When it comes to passing, I'm big on timing and chemistry. So I like a 3-step drop. 1, 2, 3, out. Play action. Boom, out. 1, 2, 3, out. 2-step drop. Boom, boom, out. You know, I like that's how I like the game to be played, you know, and I saw some of that from Bryce and Jaden Davis. Those nice 3-step drops. 1, 2, 3, throw that go route. You know, I like that. You know, I think that's how the quarterbacking is supposed to be played if you can. That's how I like it. You know, some people like the long 5-step drop and all that type of stuff, and you sitting in the pocket waiting on them. No, I like it to be crisp, concise. I know this, understanding what the defense is giving you, which they're going to have to learn. Obviously, they're young guys. Understanding what they're giving you and understanding your one-on-one matchup. That's what you always want to find, that one-on-one matchup, and go to it. 1, 2, 3, boom, it's out. You know, so that helps because not only does that get the ball out of your hands, but it also helps the offensive line also. So, but I saw some of that, and I was glad to see that from Bryce and Jaden Davis a little bit too, you know. But that's about all I got for this one, y'all. We still got a long time to go. It's a nice amount of time for the season, and hopefully, and I think Bryce is still going to be the starter. Hopefully, Bryce can, and the receivers, they got to get that chemistry, and we got to figure out something with Evan Link. But like we said, this was a draft, so it wasn't the starting receivers with the projected probably starting quarterback. It's not that. So it's hard to see a unit, an offensive unit be really cohesive when it's a draft. You get what I'm saying? So honestly, I'm tired of the draft stuff. Have a first team, and let's go. Let's just do it normally. Normal, you know. I want to get some real looks at the team. You know, it's bothering me. With Harbaugh, we didn't have to worry about it so much because after 2021, we knew what we had and we were just loaded. Spring game was just something to watch. You didn't have that many worries. You just knew we were locked and loaded and we were about to come out that year and kick some butt and whatever. You know, the spring game was just something to watch, something entertaining to give us some content. You know, but with these teams, you trying to see you're trying to see some cohesive and some chemistry. Well, hey, I need to see. Y'all lied to us last year. We're trying to see my binoculars. But that's what it is, you know. So we're gonna see. I like Bryce can make every throw. So that and he's got the legs because he had some runs that one of them he probably would have took it 60 or something, you know. But you know that's not what that was for. That's not what they were trying to do. So, well, he's got all the talent, the arm talent to make those dime throws, you know. So that's all I got for this one, y'all. You know I get on here and start to rambling. So that's all I got for this one. Appreciate everybody coming to the spring game that we, kicked it with, took pictures with, showed love. And shout out to TJ and all the boys, the Avengers. And that's all I got for this one. So like, share, subscribe. And as always, go blue.
It's great to be a Michigan War!